Hey guys, it's Ricky Cecchini, the VP of Product here at CloudRadial, and I'm going to be giving you a tour of UCP, specifically in the lens of how to scale your client retention as an enterprise class MSP. Now, the first thing that I like to do is show the homepage, or at least one of the customizable homepages, and talk through the various experience. Let's focus on the very base end user first and foremost, because before we can offer any kind of a client experience that really scales well, we want to think about what we're offering the various types of people that we're supporting. So for a base end user, what we really want to do is try to build up some stickiness, some reason to use the portal. We want something that is branded, something that is easily accessible, and something that has genuine use for day to day, which you need more than just a ticketing portal to be able to do that. So I like to start with the applications as an example. Now this is basically a bookmark launcher that helps you get in and create a curated, customized launchpad for your clients. Now there's plenty of stock content inside of CloudRadial, so you're not starting from scratch, but you can always add your own thing. So imagine end users coming in here, starting their day by being able to log into the portal, access anything from, again, their billing portal, maybe their various other vendor portals that you have for them, or simply links that help them do their jobs, whether it's specific training or the 365 admin center, whatever you like. Super easy way to get into it, super easy way to get some collaboration with the client. Another really popular feature is the knowledge base. One of the interesting things that we do is we do not try to pretend like we're the only knowledge base or that you don't already have knowledge base documents, but in a attempt to become a really good client experience, we want to take all of your documentation and put it into one portal, at least link it off in one portal, so it's a really easy way for clients to access that. And we find that that is another key driver for clients to engage with you. So if we look, you can write articles directly in the portal and disseminate them at scale very easily. And you're seeing an example here of a guide on how to use the portal itself and how to customize it user by user. But you can do things like pulling it in from, say, even supported third-party documentation. Now we integrate directly with Hudoo as an example, and the end result is that the client articles really don't look very different, and nor should they. We're trying to make it really easy to, again, source documentation from different systems so that clients can reliably go to one portal and get their documentation. That's true of written documentation like I showed in the first example, or linked documentation, or even simply one that is linked off to third-party areas, right? So in this case, directly on the Microsoft site for how to use Teams. So this is the kind of stuff that helps our MSPs build that rapport with their clients and deliver a platform that is genuinely useful and worth logging into. Another key cornerstone of all of this is the training. CloudRadial has a lightweight LMS inside of it that has over 40 free courses pre-populated inside of it, which is a great head start if you're trying to do this yourself and trying to offer some kind of a training. And a couple benefits of this is that not only does it offer a large value for your clients, but it can obviously help to make the burden of things like security or some kind of process shared between you two. So I can go in as a user and click on any one of my courses. And again, there's pre-built ones from CloudRadial that work by being able to be clicked on and tracked through. So you can see that I have a little bit of enrollment progress, and I can go through it and actually see the questions and maybe take a quiz on it if I really have any preference to do that quiz myself. Or I can just have it be a straight lesson. Or we can also integrate with a couple of really awesome vendors in the MSP space that provide really good training. So without going too deep into any of these features, with the goal being to reduce client churn and focus on that retention, what we're doing here is, outside of just offering a ticketing portal, which we'll get to, we're offering some features that are really, really sticky and give clients, again, flexibility and reasons to use this portal. So whether it is the bookmarks, the application links, that is, or the knowledge base or the courses, you've got a couple of different hooks that really allow you to approach this portal in whatever way suits you best. Now, why am I delaying the ticket part? Well, most people think client portal is synonymous with ticketing in the MSP space. And while it's a certainly very important part, it is not the only thing. So it's best approached when you layer it in with everything else, because if you really want your client retention to improve, you have to start thinking about the resources you put for your clients as more than just transactional. And tickets are pretty transactional. That being said, they're still very important for both sides of the table. Now, for you guys, if we look at a form in CloudRadial, for example, we'll go to our service requests. There are lots of reasons you'd want this. Forms are awesome. They give you all the information that you need at one pass, and as we'll look at in a moment, they can have a lot of information that clients don't even see that really help you cut down on tickets and be more efficient. So here's an example. Let's take a look at our very popular onboarding form, and you can see that obviously all of the really critical information that typically gets missed when it's emailed or just phoned in is listed here, right? From the first name to the last name to even a signature, all the way down to the preferential stuff that gets hidden, right? Conditionals, triggerable automations, which we'll cover a little bit later, are all in here. And this is super awesome and flexible. And again, we start with a huge library of pre-built ones for you that you can always customize or add your own if you don't really care for any of the ones we've added. And the power of the ticketing form in here is great. Now, CloudRadial largely and best works with a PSA connection. The reason is that when we have a PSA connection, not only do we build the forms nicely, which is not dependent on the PSA, but when you do have a PSA connected, you can do things like routing it to appropriate boards or queues or teams, as well as the specific types and subtypes and all the configuration things on there. What this helps you do is by defining the stuff on the front end, you get a smoother client experience because every bit of information that you need from the client is already submitted for you, meaning that you can basically deliver on that a lot faster, close tickets faster. So from a client retention standpoint, not only is it a smoother client experience, but it's also faster ticket resolution, which doubles back into a smoother client experience, which is really awesome. Now, the other awesome thing about this is how clients perceive these tickets. When you work with UCP, it's really kind of a layer that sits on top of your PSA system. It's not intended to replace it. So retention-wise, what we're doing is we're trying to show people that they have these tickets, not only submission forms available, but also the ability to see them. And that's a very comfortable thing because by being able to display the tickets in here, and whether I'm an administrator and I have access to see maybe all the tickets in the organization, or I'm an end user and I just have my own tickets or something in between that, either way, we wanted to make it a really smooth and easy experience. So if I click on any particular issue, let's try this one right here, what I should be seeing is a back and forth conversation that is very easy to read and talk through and add to, that basically pulls directly from the PSA live. Now, why this is really awesome is because unlike an email or a phone call, the clients can get that information, a really rich amount of information, at their fingertips whenever they feel like it. Again, they can add their notes and offer in additional attachments or context as they see fit. And they can even go as far as to manipulate the ticket, right? You can give them the option to do things like increasing the priority or closing the ticket. And there's a whole approval system workflow that is very popular in CloudRadial as well that allows end users to basically shift stuff through and make sure that it doesn't get stuck in an email from a manager that may not be in office. So cumulatively, without having to go into every feature, these are the core basics that are going to help you get retention, because for the most part, once people get comfortable and used to logging in their applications or accessing their documentation, taking their training and doing their tickets through here, it becomes a very, very easy, simple, and routine way to access this. Now, that's something we call kind of building the habit loop. So once you do that, that's very powerful because again, you've got people logging in here every day. But the real focus for client experience and for retention is not just the end users, the very basic end users, that is. We want to shift to a system where we focus on key points of contact as the ones that get the most value out of the portal, because in a two-pronged approach, you've got the value in the portal, but you also need assistance in getting adoption, because it doesn't really matter how cool your portal is or how capable it is. Without adoption, it's not going to go very far. So what we like to do is, instead of just stopping there, we also go a little bit further, and we're going to go down this kind of split line here and talk about how this affects our key points of contact. So think like your office managers or IT managers, maybe some kind of co-managed situation. This is where we really start to differentiate ourselves in UCP from any other product. So we kind of think, again, of training and documentation and whatnot as table stakes. Let's talk about this. If we go into kind of a more of a business review mindset, you need to display a lot of potentially complex information from various sources into something that is consumable and easy to understand, which is a tall order. So one of the things I like to show is there is a spot under our compliance tab for our policies, and you can see here that what's happening is we have our policies highlighting what requires attention. Now, this is super awesome and very powerful. And fundamentally what's happening is we have these rules that are looking for certain things, whether it's security related things or productivity or compliance stuff. So for example, let's click on this red productivity, because this is implying that our productivity as an organization is at risk. And we can see that there are things like, hey, we're past the endpoint life cycle, like, hey, some endpoints are old. If I click this, I can actually see which ones are old, and we have a conversation. So this is now no longer something that is a printout of RMM data or a huge PDF report. It's something that your clients can reference and understand and discuss alongside with you in a portal they can access 24/7, which is super powerful. Now, for the magic for how these policies works, there's a lot of them, and they have a lot of ramifications for reporting. So if we really take a look, we've got all of these in here, but the magic is that whatever enters the portal, even for inventory reporting, which is one of the important things that a lot of clients come to us for, is we want to be able to display things like your endpoints or your domains or your servers, or even with a API integration, you can pull in really anything you want, because we have both an integration to IT Glue's flexible assets as well as an open API that you can put any device. So you can see that I've got things like mobile applications listed in here, or mobile devices listed in here as well. This is super powerful because, again, now your portal becomes not just a place to log those tickets or read those articles, but it starts to become a powerful inventory tracking, a rule setting thing that is very easily understood. This is a really delicate balance between providing the end users, specifically points of contact, the right amount of depth. Not too much information that it's overwhelming, but enough that it's interesting and it leads to business decisions. So a lot of the compliance policies that I'm talking about before key off of those to try to showcase exactly what matters. And obviously it goes without saying, but there's customizations, whether it's to the name or to how you want things scored, or whether you care to track for things is completely in your hands. Now, when we go further down into the generalized approach for report tracking, we have our compliance policies and we have our report archives, which are super popular. What a report archive does is it allows you to take a report from any third-party tool or homemade or really anything, and to enter them into the portal on a client-by-client or even global basis. The end result is that as a point of contact, I can go to this area and see that I've got, say, a VCIO report, and I can click on that report and see it directly in my portal. So think about your backup reports or your security reports or your custom ones, to make them available and kind of archived in a set way, in a way that they can be seen again at point in time whenever the client feels like it, is absolutely powerful for the end users, and it's absolutely powerful for you because no more lost documents. This is the stuff that really creates a lot of friction ordinarily in relationships, that tends to drive clients away and tends to raise the churn rate for a lot of our MSPs. So things like this may not seem directly correlated, but what we've seen is a plethora of information saying that the more difficult it is to access things like this or to see things like the compliance report, the higher and higher the chance of churn becomes, even if the work shown is perfect, right? So you want to be able to make this information accessible and understandable inherently, which is exactly what we're doing. Now, the reality is that the policies are pretty automated, right? We have that information coming in and rules being applied, so you get this graph. And you have the report archives that are kind of allowing you to forward or enter in documentation and reports via API. Now, there's something between that. If there's clients that need to go deeper, you need something that's more flexible and maybe a little bit more manual, and assessments are a great choice for that. So in this same compliance area, you have the power even to set up these kind of questionnaires that allow your clients to, again, not just view things, but actually engage with you. Now, whether you do this for them or collaboratively or even put the onus on them is ultimately up to you. But you can do things like, say, running an onboarding assessment and doing multiple attempts of it. The reason I show this, especially when we talk about retention, is because this really shows clients exactly what you are looking at in a way that is shared with them, again, in the same platform. So we're keeping that theme of having one accessible location. And what's really cool is, besides the overall view, they can even see the specific drill down into what we're asking, how we're asking it, and why we're asking it. And again, it is retained. So what you're seeing here is a lot of the things that you're doing in here, whether it is, again, security reviews or onboarding or really anything, nothing else is going to give you this level of interactivity and accountability. So all these three things together, you see, kind of mirror the ones that we saw for the basic end users, but more for, like, again, the point of contact. These are a complete picture in an understandable way, again, in that same location, the client portal. Now, the trick is between the more advanced stuff up here and then the basic end user stuff, there's another layer, which is how you turn all of this information into a conversation, because conversations are what drive collaboration and understanding and ultimately better retention. So what we do for that as an answer is we kind of build this up client by client, and then we redisplay this into our planner under account and planner. Because at the end of the day, data is only half of it. The other half is what you put in front of the client. Everything here comes forward into a forward-looking conversation. It's kind of an account roadmap. It's organized by quarter, it's shared with the client, it's collaborative, so they can add to it, and you can pre-build your service offerings as really simple cards. So think about like your managed service bundle or maybe your IT consulting bundle, where whether it is you or it is the client, when they click on it, they get a snapshot of exactly what that is so they understand the context. And the real power isn't even behind the pre-built stuff. It's in conversations you have with clients. So in business reviews, what our MSPs like to do is they like to keep things super collaborative and super back and forth. So if we were having a QBR or whatever you may call your business review, you can come into this area and click on add a card and add one on the fly. So I can say example, let's drop one in here, right? Where I might be able to pick the nature of that card, whether it's a security effort or a compliance effort, title it, put a summary, embed stuff, even attach things to this card. And basically what's now happening is I have this as a heard, noted, understood example. And it's something that we can both agree on and see visually. We can touch it, it's very tangible. So what happens here is you have effectively taken the information that you've seen and turned it into something that is super actionable. So the other cool thing is that if things go the way that you like and people kind of accept your suggestions, that's amazing, that's awesome. And if they don't, right, you may open yourself up to an area where is kind of a compliance risk, right? Maybe the client didn't take that security recommendation into account and something happened. You have a nice running proof exactly of what you recommended directly in their portal. So it just really removes that barrier that causes a lot of MSPs kind of some trouble in making sure that everybody's on the same page. So accountability really for both sides. Now what's cool is basically everything I've shown you as quickly as I have is something that scales across clientele. So CloudRadial's system makes it so you have kind of the individual view by each individual company, but every single one of these is customizable by client. So every single thing you've seen on this page is kind of repeated for each individual customer you add in here, meaning that every single one starts off with a template and then you can build off of that and kind of iterate off of that. So full flexibility. The cool thing is that you have full visibility. So you can either go look at individual clients and manage them that way, or you can look at them at a kind of a global view. So this is an example of the global planner view that not only tells you all of the cards and initiatives we have out there, but you can also see them even in a sales matrix in a really clean way to understand which clients you have, who's using what, who's not using what, and why they're not using that, right? So you have a pretty good understanding of the state of your client affairs from one portal as well. So just like it helps them do a whole bunch of stuff, it helps you kind of keep tabs on everything there, which is really awesome because a lot of this is something that typically takes a lot of spreadsheets and annoyance and visibilities. Now, if you want to take it a step further and really scale this up, because enterprise MSPs are typically always pushing the envelope. They want to see the coolest, latest thing. They want to get to zero-touch resolutions and just generally move things along. There's a very powerful system of automations inside of CloudRadial as well. So if we click on this automations tab, what you're going to see is that you've got the ability to kind of build these different automations that accomplish various tasks, whether it is something super simple, like sending an email based off of a ticket, or you want to go ahead and even do crazier things like provisioning users, right? So how this works is we have these automation systems that you can build up and kind of chain together. They're very simple, they're drag and drop. And depending on what you want to do and what order you want to do it, you can kind of drag things over here and change them the way you like. But even in this specific example where we are using a webhook, we are specifically creating a name of a group adding the user in there, and these can attach to forms. So the net result is that if you call for an automation inside of a form, as a user fills it out with that really clean end user interface, it will create these things. It will do these activities. It will run that RMM job. Why this is super powerful is because not only do you have a really clean way to execute these commands, but it's something that is part naturally of the client experience, meaning that you don't really lift a finger. It just kind of happens, which is a great thing, not just for client expectations, but even for you on the service desk side. And if you're running a dedicated RPA platform that does an even more advanced version of this, you can still embed and work with us to trigger those end user automations from our forms, which means that, once again, clients can initiate things from the forms and webhooks go out and get those automation triggers, and the clients get instant results, which means, again, you don't really add any headcount, and that's a really, really large part of scaling. So speaking of, I kind of mentioned at the beginning about accessibility, and one of the things that we're really, really, really adamant about is that depending on how your accessibility is going to depend on how you put the portal in front of your clients and how they can access it. So I'm happy to say that there is a few different options. Now you've got everything from obviously your brandable, your URL, your colors and whatnot. But as far as deployment, you've got the web app, which is what we've been looking at. You've got the desktop application, which is something that operates the same, but you can actually deploy out, especially via like RMM and whatnot. And you've even got a super popular option for our Teams application, which auto-authenticates and no login friction whatsoever, which is really sweet because it basically removes barriers to entry, which leads to higher adoption and leads to generally happier clients that are easier to retain. So it's something that really compounds together. The UCP is the hub. Everything else in the CloudRadial portfolio enhances it, and it all points back to the same thing, making it easier for clients to work with you and harder to leave you. ServiceAI is a good example of something a little bit different. It's built to be the back end of every ticket that comes through the portal, or web, or even chat. Triage, resolution suggestions, knowledge base matching, assistance with tone for CSAT, all of this is done before a technician even touches the ticket. The client experience doesn't really change, but your resolution times go down and your consistency goes up. And that does matter for retention because clients won't remember the uptime, they'll remember how it feels when something's broken. Let's talk about chat. Chat's integrated, or can be integrated, directly inside of the portal, as you can see here. Chat is a cool thing because it doesn't really mean that clients have to change the way they work with you. They reach out to you however they feel comfortable to do it, routing in the same workflow more or less, handled in the same way. There's no friction, there's no real, you have to go to the portal to submit a ticket. You're meeting them where they are with the same power and flexibility of the portal to route it where you need to. And there's even something else in here, which is Storefront. Storefront is really cool. That's to close the loop on procurement and in general having that self-service store for goods and services. When a client's ready to buy something, they're already in your portal and they can do it there. Upsell conversations that used to wait for the business review can happen immediately and naturally. Each one of these touch points ultimately is another reason a client doesn't want to think about going anywhere. They're not just getting IT support from you. They're using you for your daily launchpad, for your training, for your store, for your chat. There's a whole package here that really keeps them engaged the whole way through. And that's the infrastructure that they really would have to build if they were to leave you. All in all, that is the main driving purpose of the UCP. Every day a client starts in your portal, every time they find an answer without opening a ticket, every business review they leave with a documented roadmap and understanding is another success for you and them. That's a better relationship overall. If you want to see this in the context of your own stack, your own clients, your own data, your own tools, talk to the team. We're going to show you what it looks like to work with your PSA and your technology. There's a lot of configuration that I didn't cover today and a lot of other options that are pretty cool, but we can get into that specifically later. Thank you so much for watching.